Passively investing in apartments can be an excellent way to unlock your wealth potential, creating additional streams of income for you while reducing your tax burden. Anthem Capital is a premier real estate firm that helps busy, high-income professionals who struggle with making time for what they love through passive real estate investment opportunities and education that will unlock their wealth potential and create a lasting and positive impact in their community. Anthem helps investors build generational wealth through private multifamily real estate investment opportunities in stable, yield-producing properties across growing geographic markets in the U.S. Their extensive knowledge and experience is why passive investors are able to see strong performance while minimizing their downside risk. Take action today. Visit unlockwealthpotential.com to request a free copy of Anthem's book, Unlock Your Wealth Potential Through Real Estate Investing.
Ides of March. So hopefully it's not as scary of a day as it was for Julius Caesar, 2,000 years ago. But we're really excited to have you guys for our latest of Crack the Code, the 8 key factors in finding your perfect real estate market. This came as a direct result of our previous month office hour, in which we did a mystery market event talking about a special city that if you were there, you got to learn about it. If you weren't there, maybe you won't get to know about it because we took it down off our YouTube channel. If you do want to learn about it, follow up with us. We're always happy to talk real estate and our favorite real estate markets. So for today, I've got my partner Tariq here, and we are going to get into the details on this, not just providing the answers to what types of questions should you ask, but how you can actually find those answers yourself. Because that old adage always says, teach a man to fish, or catch a man to fish, and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. So we're all about feeding you for a lifetime as a part of Anthem Capital. That is why we exist, to provide value to you. So with that, I'm going to shut up like I always do, and I'm going to turn it over to my friend Tariq as we get into who we are, what we're all about. So now my deck just needs to move forward. You guys already know what we do. So I'm not going to spend time on this slide. Just know that we're here to help high-income earners unlock their wealth potential. That's our job. We take care of the real estate. We make you money while you sleep. Now, the agenda for the day is really to provide the answers to the questions that a lot of you sent after our February office hour. And then if you hang around to the end, we do have a surprise gift. If this is your first time around, you might be very excited by it. I know last month, there's a lot of people that are very excited about the surprise gift we gave to them at the end. So let's hop into it. The 8 things we need to research before picking your mystery market. And the first one is, what is the population of the market and the projected population growth? And how do I go about finding that now? Tariq, what do you got for me?
Right. So starting with that is one of the key things that we look at when we are looking at any potential market that we are going to be targeting. Is that there is positive population growth, there is net positive migration, and those, at a high level, there are national annual reports that come out. There is, reports from various organizations. U-Haul has a report as well on an annual basis where people are traveling to, and then there are, several of the national brokerages put out data on where the population growth is happening, in which states, in which cities, within which states. So that is a key thing that we look at as we are identifying a market, that we want to make sure that there is net positive migration. The population growth has been strong historically and is projected to be strong. And alongside that, the employment growth is strong as well. Markets where you have companies moving into industrial sector growth and employers moving their headquarters or establishing their offices. So those kinds of things, those kinds of data, we can find from the U-Haul report. I said we can find from some of the annual reports or the quarterly, well, not necessarily the quarterly, but the annual reports that are put out by some of the major brokerages, Marcus and Millichap being one of them, CBRE, Capstone. So these are brokerages that put out a lot of that information on an annual basis.
So I mean, that's very helpful information here. And, if I'm somebody trying to get my feet wet in the space, now I'm starting to get a little bit of an understanding of like, where do I first look? Now, you could, of course, always come to a group like Anthem that is a little bit more seasoned and has some experience doing this, and we can help you along the way. But yeah, if you're somebody that's a DIYer, then this is a good way to get started.
So that is, with reference to a broader, market. So within the market, when you are, zeroing on a particular submarket or a particular property, then you want to dig further into and get more intelligent on the data that is specific to that particular submarket, that particular area. And you could be looking at, 1 mile, 3 mile, 5 mile radius population, what that is, what that trend is expected to be over the next several years, 3 to 5 years. And that kind of data, you can, CoStar, some of the industry reports that we rely on, CoStar is one of them, ALN, Yardi Matrix, those are some of the providers there. But CoStar is the one that we use a lot, and they have a demographic data page when you're looking at a particular property and run an underwriting report for a particular property, and that demographic data page would have, that section would have data on 1 mile, 3 mile, 5 mile radius population, as well as projected growth of population over the next 5 years. So that is from some of those paid industry data sources. Then there are several other websites which are mostly free. There is citydata.com. There is censusreporter.org. There is United States zip codes.org that has a lot of data by zip code. There is usafacts.org. So those are some of the other websites that you can go to dig into as you want to get some more detailed data, detailed reporting when you are looking at a particular property.
Got it. Very helpful. And I think a lot of the answers that you just provided there will have a lot of correlation with the coming up questions as well. So I think the detail you just provided on slide 1 should hopefully make the rest of the questions. If anything, we're going to reinforce it for people because we know it doesn't always click the first time. So let's move on to the next kind of question, and then how do we arrive there? And we'll see, maybe some of the things that we just listed could very well also be true on this next slide too. So what are the sectors of employment in this present economy? Is there anything more responsible for 25%? Where do we get that information, Tariq?
Right. So a lot of times properties that we are looking at or analyzing are properties that are listed with a broker, and there is an offering memorandum that has been put together by the broker, by the brokerage. And that has a lot of information on the submarket and the market. Especially there typically is a section on the employment, the employers in that market. So that can be a very good starting point, even if there isn't, it's a property that is not necessarily marketed or has an offering memorandum. There may be another property that might have been listed with the same brokerage or another brokerage within a 1 mile radius that would have very much relevant information that you can dig into, that you can rely on, at least as a starting point. Now, once you have that, you do want to validate a lot of the information that you may rely on, that is part of the offering memorandum, because that is, at the end of the day, a sales document, which is put together in an effort to sell the property and to be able to get the best price. So it's a marketing sales document. So you got to keep that in mind. But to validate some of the information, you can, get a lot of information from the local chambers of commerce, from the local economic development commissions for in the city or the county where that property sits, and those are, organizations that exist for this reason, and they are very ready, willing, and able to provide a lot of this information to anyone that is interested in an investment or an acquisition in that particular market.
Yeah, wow. That's extremely helpful. And sorry, I got a little distracted. Somebody was messaging me about am I drinking beer during our office hour? And the short answer is no. It is in a beautiful liter jug here. I've got a German background, so I know this isn't real estate, but got to answer people's questions. So it is a green smoothie, everyone. It's a kale, spinach, apple, banana, ginger, chia seeds, hemp seeds, flax seeds, almond milk, and ice cubes. So yeah, I just gave you the recipe. I know that's not how you find anything in real estate, but never know. Having a healthy body might give you more energy. So yeah, sorry for getting distracted there, but thank you for the comments on, yes, Dan is drinking out of a beer mug, but it is not alcohol. It is just a healthy treat. So more to come on that one, but yeah, let's hop over to that next slide. The median household income, 3, 5, 10-mile radius. What is the income to rental rate ratio out there? How do you go about finding that? I think we mentioned this on slide 1. There might be some reinforcement here. So Tariq, you go ahead.
Right. So the first thing is we have a typo in there. It should be median, not medium. So median household income.
I'll take the error on that spelling there. That's my copywriting.
So there is, again, data from some of the websites that I've already mentioned, from some of the paid data sources. I have myself relied quite heavily on the CoStar reports. Again, in that demographic section that you have, they do have that information as well on the median household income in a 1, 3, and 5 mile radii of that particular property, that particular address. And then some of the websites that I'd given you earlier, City Data or United States by zip code, they have data by zip code that is quite relevant as well. But between CoStar and some of those sites that were already mentioned, you can easily find information on what the median household income is, and then based on that, you can look at you can utilize Google, you can utilize apartments.com to identify properties within close proximity of the target property, look at their rates, and you can arrive at, or at least directionally see what kind of percentage of the median household income the rent rates are.
Got it. No, that's extremely helpful, and hopefully you guys can hear me all right. Right now, I'll be muting myself. I've got a 4-month-old that wants to participate in this webinar, and I'm just telling him until he can speak fluent English, he's not going to be able to participate in these things and provide any recommendations. But I do apologize for the pterodactyl screams in the background if you guys hear that. So thank you, Tariq. I'm very glad you're able to answer these questions while I stay on mute most of this time. Let's talk about the transportation because, you always want to have good traffic. If you think about not just multifamily space, but, CVS and Starbucks, they love to go to high traffic areas because thus you will have more demand, most likely from shoppers, but also renters. And so if we're thinking about that from a multifamily space, how do we go about acquiring that same type of data that maybe CVS and Starbucks are using as well when they're identifying future locations that they want to take over?
Right. So again, we a lot of times we are looking at properties that are listed and there is an offering memorandum that is available for that property. And that is one of the pieces of information that you would typically have in that offering memorandum is, the number of vehicles on that particular street or a highway that the property might be close to or visible from. What are the number of cars on a daily basis that are driving by? Now, you can further validate or enhance that data from a couple of other means. The local Department of Transportation for that particular city or county would have information on the daily traffic counts during certain hours or daily 24-hour traffic count for especially the busiest streets in the area. And a lot of times, they on an ongoing basis, because of the growth, and we're talking about markets or submarkets that have net positive migration and strong population growth, which then translates into the city being able to provide the infrastructure and the required services. And as part of that, analysis, the city on an ongoing basis does traffic count studies. They look at the needs of the traffic signal needs in particular intersections, or signal cycle lengths at particular intersections, or in between intersections needs for a stop sign or yield signs or signals, flashing lights. So just because of the fact that we are looking at growing markets, the relevant city agencies, the departments of transportation, will on an ongoing basis collect and update this data, and they are very willing to. This is not proprietary data. They are a city agency. They are able to share this data with you, but it might take a couple of phone calls to try to identify who the right department or the individual within a department might be. But this is data that can, then you can further validate from one of these sources.
Yeah, that's good. And as you kind of mentioned there, I'm going to go back to our fishing thing of feed a man a fish for a day or feed him for a lifetime. As you just touched on, when you're going into those public governments to get in touch with somebody, you're pretty much just casting a line out there and trying to reel somebody in to get in contact with you. Some city governments are much more collaborative. Some, they're just bogged down because they just have limited resources. Now, we try to work in the markets that at least are more business friendly, so thus they are pro-development or pro-real estate versus other markets where they might think if you do real estate, you're a poisonous person. So we do try to at least work with groups that want us there, which then makes it more likely that when we're casting our line, somebody's going to bite and want to work with us and provide us the data necessary to ultimately come with the right property to deliver the right results. So let's then move on to the next one. Talking about the surrounding neighborhood, how do we make sure it's zoned and, having the right ordinances, unit densities per acre? How do we just kind of go about finding that?
So, the question about zoning and unit densities, and to the extent there are any guidelines or requirements for that is, I think, a lot more relevant to land transactions, land acquisition, or new development opportunities. And the zoning commission, the folks working within the planning commission or the zoning commission of a particular city or county, the relevant city or county, they will be able to provide that information to you. A lot of the counties have this information available online on their website on what the various tracts of land are and what the zoning is and what the meaning of the zoning is. So it's typically available online, or you can, make a call to the planning commission or the zoning commission, and they would be able to provide you that information. Now, with reference to what we mostly work with are properties that are, already built, occupied, value add opportunities. And in that scenario, what is more relevant is probably, what kind of other commercial, real estate is there in the particular immediate area, not, within a 1 mile radius, other, comps, other competitors of the multifamily space, other retail space that, could be where some of the tenants could be working, or other offices, commercial office buildings, things like that. So for those kinds of things, it's very easy to just, go on Google Maps or Google Earth and just, drive around the immediate area that way, and you're able to identify, what the immediate area within a few blocks looks like, and what kind of other commercial or residential real estate, and the quality of the both residential and commercial real estate is. And you can go beyond, if there is some residential area in close proximity to the multifamily property that you might be looking at. You can, go to some of the other sites like Zillow or other sites where Realtor.com or Zillow.com, and look at the, house prices in that area to get a sense of the demographic, and get a sense of the median household income that might be relevant in that area.
Yeah, one thing I really want to highlight here, and you hit it very well, Tariq. Driving around, that is so important. Like, you have to actually go out and physically assess the area, because that will give you the best real vantage on what is this really going to be here. If I liken it, I'm sure a lot of the people watching have received a college degree. And my favorite professors in college were the ones that were adjunct professors, the ones that had actually gone out and done it, and now they were teaching it in a classroom. And in the same way, if you're just looking at it, reading about it in a book or saying, oh, on the map or on Google Maps, it looks like it's this, great. But once you're actually physically in the market and doing it, that's a whole nother level of detail to ensure that you're getting the right asset. And then if if we're talking about the land part, and I know we briefly touched on that, well, if you're really interested in the development phase, you think, well, this really doesn't make sense because right next door is, let's just say, a 94 unit building, but you see a single family lot. Well, you could certainly go and approach the government and say, hey, can we do a zoning variance? And they might give you a special permit project to actually do that. Some of those requirements might be something like, hey, you have to do sustainable based housing because technically it's a lot of land on the density per acres would allow 20 units if it's this type. But hey, if you do sustainable based housing, now you get 35 units for the same amount of acre. So there's a lot of interesting things, and it is kind of a game of chess, or at least a collaboration with the local government officials on what you could get permits for if you're looking at a raw land deal for development. So that was my little tangent there. But let's go ahead and move on to the next one. And all right, this is more competitive set. How do we know what's going on nearby on a 3, 5, 10 mile radius? Is somebody else making a competitive property that could, hurt our potential returns? Is there enough demand versus supply available? Because, we don't want to be the reverse there, or we'll have to reduce our rates. So
right. So there, initially you can just again use Google Maps, Google Earth or apartments.com to look at other multifamily competitors, comps, properties in the area of a similar vintage, lower, higher vintage, to try to get an idea of how many properties there are, how concentrated the supply is within a small radius around the property. Now, beyond that, CoStar is again very useful in this, where if you have access to CoStar, you can actually customize, you can identify, you can look at all the multifamily properties, you can look at their specifics on, how many units it is, what year of construction it is, what occupancy, you can look at a lot of that data, what kind of rents per square foot there are, what kind of unit breakdown, unit mix there is. And based on a lot of that information, you can identify true comps to your property and then run an underwriting report. And that what that would help you do is then really hone in on how do the rental rates of your property compare to the comps that you have handpicked from within a small radius around the property. From your research, talking to the property management company, to the brokers, trying to understand who the true competition of this property is, and then digging into those specific properties, to trying to arrive at what kind of rental rates they are able to derive from the property, what kind of rehabs have been done, what kind of concessions might there be available in the immediate area at the comps, what kind of occupancy vacancy might there be in the comp set that you have selected, and then in properties within a 1, 3, 5 mile radius in general. So those are, all of the very relevant data points that you can very easily customize within a CoStar underwriting report by hand-picking the specific comps that you want to run the report for. And then as part of that report, CoStar would also provide what is coming online, what has recently come online, and what is going to be coming online in the coming years. So that is very helpful to look at what kind of supply might there be coming online, and to the extent there is, then what impact that might have on your ability to improve rents on your property as you do any enhancements, improvements on your property. And then, you can further dig into that by, getting in touch with the local, the departments, the building department, and finding out any specific permits that have been issued or are in the process of being issued, to give you even more insights to what might be coming into the development phase over the next few years.
Yeah, I've got no additional comments there. I think you were very thorough on that. Let me just move it right along. And I'm loving this. I know we blocked off an hour for this, and we never like to exceed an hour, but really, I think we're going to be done a lot sooner than that. So that's fantastic. Crime rate. How do we go about finding that?
Right. So, I mean, the first thing to do is just to, you can look at the reviews of the property, Google reviews or any other sites that might have reviews on the property from the tenants. And that might give you some insight. You can look at just do a Google search of the news on the about the property. And you don't want to see, homicides or drug related activity, those kinds of things that come up, any shootings, those kinds of things that come up when you do a search on the property. The lender obviously is going to do similar searches on the property, and there are impacts on the rates that they might offer you based on the crime at the property. They might have other mandates by way of security patrols or anything like that they might require if there is high crime on the property, or a lender may not even be willing to offer a term sheet for a particular property based on some of the crime data statistics for the property. There are websites, crime data, there is website Spot Crime. So there are websites out there that will give you data on crime activity on that particular property. And then going beyond that, the local precinct, the local police station, what kind of activity or calls they have had from a particular address, from a particular property over the last 6 to 12 months will give you an insight as well. And to the extent you are local, you can always talk to a policeman on break somewhere in the area in close vicinity of the property, or you can walk into the local police station or precinct yourself and talk to someone there to try to get that data. Again, these are things that when relevant, we have done ourselves, and people are very willing to share information, and oftentimes having a conversation with someone that is called out to the property often on an ongoing basis, you might be able to get a lot more insight from a conversation like that than you would otherwise.
Yeah, amen. I think that's all fantastic what you just said there. I really like the fact that you touched on the police stations. I mean, if you're going to have a multifamily property there, it's all about building relationships too. And getting in touch with your local law enforcement could be really helpful once you take over a property too, to handle any issues that might occur in the surrounding area to make sure that your tenants are as safe as possible. So I really like that part you touched on there.
Right. And what we have actually been able to do as part of this open dialogue is that, someone from the precinct or the police station, if you're able to work with them, they're willing to, increase the number of drive-bys or drive-throughs the property if they know that you are a new owner that is willing to work with them to lower the crime at that or any suspicious activity, drug activity on that particular property. So they are very willing to work with you as an owner who is willing to do your part. They're willing to do their part to work with you on that.
Absolutely. Everybody here is focused on improving a community, not detracting from the community. So that's a great point. Oh, okay. I think this is actually probably our last question. I can't see too far into the deck because it's a PowerPoint. But let's talk about natural disasters. And I know we don't personally focus any of our investments in California, which I know has had some natural disaster issues. But how do we go about finding that to make sure in our particular markets we're safe?
Right. So I think one of the first things, you could look at is the loss runs, the insurance loss runs for the property, which gives you history of claims on the property. And to the extent there have been any, roofing or flooding kind or fire, those kinds of claims at the property, you would be able to see that history through the loss run report for the property. The insurance agent that you might be working with they would be able to provide you information on that as well, in terms of what kind of coverages might be required by lenders in for a particular property in a particular market and submarket. And then the lender is going to have very specific requirements. They may have general requirements that are specific to the lender, but then they could have specific requirements that are particular to that property that you are looking at, because of where that property sits, where, what kind of a flood plain it might be in, what kind of, tornado or wind or hail activity might there be in that area on a historical basis, what kind of claims might there have been in the general area, not necessarily at that particular property, but in that general area in that city over the recent years. So all of that data, you could get from some of these sources, and is very relevant because insurance is, one item that has been consistently going up and has gone up quite drastically over the last 3 to 5 years, and continues to go up very, double-digit percentage growth year over year. So having your arms around and having appropriate assumptions, both on your, for your expenses going in, and then for what kind of increase might there be on an annual basis beyond the first year. So those are very relevant data points for you to get your arms around, and that is the best way to do that.
Yeah, and I'll just add like a little color commentary on a story that when I was back in my days as a passive investor, and this is, pre-Dan ever joining Anthem Capital, I was a passive investor in a deal in a market. I won't share the group I was passively investing with, but it was in a major market. I'll tell the market, actually. It was Dallas-Fort Worth. So one of the biggest multifamily markets in America. And this particular group, had an issue. There is a great freeze in Dallas that winter, and a lot of properties were not properly outfitted from a water pipes perspective, and water pipes were bursting, and it was causing a lot of damage. As it turns out, that real estate group had not done their proper due diligence, and actually highlighting the prior insurance report saying, hey, this thing needs to be corrected because some issue could occur. And if this issue occurs and this is not corrected, we are not liable, insurance company, for the damage. Well, that group that was rather eager and, of course, raising the money and getting the deal done kind of missed that major piece. And inevitably, that great freeze occurred, water pipe damage occurred, and the insurance company didn't pay for it. So always do your due diligence on your insurance contracts, both in the past, especially if you're going to inherit from another group. Make sure you understand flags that were raised from that insurance group to ensure that you are compliant and thus will receive that insurance payment in the event of some incident occurring. So, Tariq, I'm sure you've probably experienced issues like that in the past too.
Right. So just on that point, as you are going through, it's very easy for for you to look at historical financials or look at other properties and someone to say a number of an insurance per door, per year number, per unit number for a particular property. But understanding what the deductibles are, what the limitations are, what the caps are, what kind of coverages there are, that is very key, especially the deductibles, right? There could be, if the deductibles are larger numbers, your premium, of course, would be much lower. So, you want to make sure that you are making an apples to apples comparison when you are, looking at these numbers and this data. And then, picking policy and deductibles. Of course, there are minimum hurdles that a lender would have, but you want to make sure that you, in your business plan, are comfortable with having the deductibles that the lender might be comfortable with, but are you comfortable with that? Or there are times when we buy them down. We spend the money and we buy it down to a lower deductible, a lower percentage, because we don't feel comfortable with a higher number. So just digging into those specifics, into those details is also very key.
Yeah, completely agree. Well, before I get it over to the surprise gift here, Tariq, do you have any other questions we think we should have answered? I know some people are coming through with some standout questions, which if I can't properly answer it, we'll respond back to it one-to-one via email for some of these questions that are coming through. But Tariq, any final comments before I share the surprise gift?
Right. So, we talked about, starting with a broader a market, picking a market, but, it's real estate is very specific to where it sits, the location where it sits, and what is in the immediate vicinity of that. So, yes, you can pick a market, but then within the market, the sub-markets, they behave differently. They perform differently. They have different demographics. They have different set of, underlying criteria, underlying factors. So once you have identified a market, then identifying a property or a sub-market and then a property within that market, you really need to dig down. You cannot rely on market-wide data. You have to dig down to the 1 mile radius. You have to dig down to the comps, the specific comps, the 2, 3, 4 comps that the property competes with on an ongoing basis. The actual demographics within a very small radius around the property, the actual the real estate, the other commercial presence in the area. So those kinds of things are very local, very specific. So the more research, the more in-depth digging that you do is going to be beneficial in the long run.
Yeah. Yep. I've got no further comments there. Completely agree. You got to put in the work up front so that you're ultimately happier on the back end. And that's what it's all about. So my favorite part of the show or the office hour or whatever you want to call these events now. The surprise gift, I know a lot of people were expecting Tom Cruise to come on since he did, after all, propel through the ceiling and steal our code just, like it played out in Mission Impossible. But luckily, I mean, his one request after he stole the code was just to make sure that we shared it out with everybody. So that was, Tom's text message to me said, do that, which Tariq and I just did that. So I do apologize. It's not a cameo from Tom Cruise. Now, what I can do for you, though, is our book club. And by now, you guys know that we are on month 4 of our book club. So last month was actually limitless, and we bought 150 copies. And we actually only have a few copies left. So that was a very popular book. And if you haven't had a chance to read that one, definitely do. It's one of my favorite books. This one is going to go more towards the route of real estate. And it's the BRRRR Method. And it's actually authored by David Green, Bigger Pockets podcast. So it's a book we highly recommend. We do have a few free copies that we will gladly ship out to our biggest fans that scan this code and let us know that they're interested in it. So hopefully I've rambled enough to give you a chance to at least scan the QR code. If not, I guess you could pause it and watch it later on once we do upload it to our YouTube channel. But like our prior office hour or mystery market event, we will only have it up for a bit before we take it down for a short time to really reward those people that want to get access to this book sooner, to learn more about real estate faster, and to learn more about how to crack the code in the mystery markets that we want to go after in real estate. So with that, Tariq, any final comments before we say goodbye to all the wonderful people?
I don't think so. We're just going through interesting times. As we all know, there have been a lot of moving things in the capital markets, especially in the finance, banking, real interest rate sectors. So let's see. There's a lot of speculation on what happens at the next Fed meeting. A lot of questions. Let's see how things go over the next several weeks and months here.
Yeah, I think the only thing guaranteed to change in life is change, right? So we're gonna really figure these things out. SVB was quite a surprise, and just the reactions there's created even more fear and chaos, and we're all living through it. But that's really life, and it's how you pivot and learn and progress in the right direction. So Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It was awesome reconnecting. Like I said, we are here every month, and we basically pick the topics based on your feedback. So let us know what you want to know about next month, and let us know if there's a particular celebrity you want us to bring in. Like I said, Tom Cruise tried to make it. He just kind of flat out rejected me. But, we can always try for April. So you guys let us know, and we'll see you guys in April. Take care.